Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonsteg.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Cesar Quintero. He is interesting in that he comes from Venezuela originally, has had two wonderful businesses that he has started in the Miami area, correct?
Correct, yes.
And Fit to Go, which was a healthy meal delivery system, and then a raw bar to go for bringing meals to people out in boats. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, we were the first licensed food boat in Florida.
That's amazing. Well, what fun. And he has recently been more involved with developing entrepreneurship, both in Latin and Central America, as well as in the United States, uses the EOS system, Gino Wickman system, traction implementation is part of what he does. And he has a new book that he's coming out with called The Profit Recipe. And so he brings companies together to look at how do you grow and make your business strong. So with that, Cesar, tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you got here from Venezuela, and what really got you into entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Lois, for having me. I'm originally from Venezuela, so I studied engineering there and started working with Procter & Gamble, P&G for Latin America, and as a young student. And then once I graduated, Venezuela was starting to go down the socialist / communist route. And at 24, I said, there's no real future here, so let me move to Miami, get married, and start a business all at the same time, because that's what we do when we're 24, I guess. And so I moved to Miami, and I realized there was a real gap there. It was one of my college projects that I had about what type of business I could do, and it was a lot about food delivery and all of that. Now, mind you, this is 2004, so it's way before Uber Eats and Facebook and all of that. So I saw a gap in the market, being in Miami, the healthier side, and then also the convenience. There wasn't a lot of restaurants and meals in downtown area. So I'm like, hey, why don't we start like a centralized kitchen that we could cook and deliver healthy meals to people in their office every day so that they can eat healthier meals. So, I built the website. We did the kitchen. It took me forever to remodel and get the permitting and all these things. I had no idea what I was doing. It was my first time in the food industry, my first time in doing business in America. And I was learning as I did. And then I went door to door to convince people it was convenient to have your meal delivered, because back then nobody really had that urge. It was a little ahead of its time. So little by little, it started gaining traction. So it started growing and growing. I think I made all the mistakes every entrepreneur makes while growing. I hired friends and family. I overestimated how much I could sell and when. My margins were off. I didn't know how to purchase, like my inventory levels. I had every mistake I could have. But being a new entrepreneur in a new market and a new industry. But as true entrepreneurial grit fashion, I persevered and we grew. After about 7 years, we were around 1.5 million in revenue. We had like 37 employees, and we were growing, but I was still doing everything in the business. I was answering the phones. I was delivering the meals when the deliveries didn't show up. I had to step in the kitchen when it didn't. And I started growing frustrated a little bit with what I was going through. And, in 2012, I kind of was fed up. I'm like, I'm working too hard. I'm not getting what I need and what I want. And then I started going down this path of purpose and legacy, right? That you talk so much about. And in my case, it was, I went through a Simon Sinek Why discovery, really understanding what my purpose was. And I realized that my focus for the last 7 years was mostly on the profit, on the product, on the process, and it wasn't so much on my people, which is where my true passion is empowering people to live the life they want to live. And that's when everything started shifting. So I read the book Traction. I read the book Great Game of Business. How can I empower my employees to take ownership of the business and be more empowered to be part of the business? And that was a pivot point for me, where I think I started developing my leadership skills a little better, and became more about how can we all win together and how can we all grow together and build a company that is more than just for its partners or shareholders or whatever it is, but so it's all of us. So eventually that led me down the track. So we started the food boats as well. We got to get 4 food boats. And then eventually I sold those 2 businesses to 2 of my employees. My chef and my operations manager bought the business from me when I started understanding that I liked more of the coaching side and the empowerment side and all of that. So I started speaking, being part of the entrepreneurs organization, and trying to help different entrepreneurs become better entrepreneurs through the same journey I went through, through purpose, through EOS, and different things that allowed me to be a better leader, and live a life that I want to live, more congruent and purposeful.
So that's an interesting journey, in that I think we're seeing kind of a bifurcation, I think, in the market between this raw profit motivation and then I have to live my purpose and meaning.
Yep.
And we're also seeing that bifurcation amongst employees, where I just need to earn a paycheck. Please pay me. Pay me my worth in relation to your worth, boss. I don't want to do the work and have you make all the money. And then you have the employees who are, I want to live my life. I want to feel like I'm waking up every day and it's purposeful, meaningful. So talk a little bit about that. What was it that happened in you that triggered that need? Because usually there's something that happens that wakes us up.
Yeah, I think in my case, it was, we were in the growth phase. We were going there. I think I was mostly in business to prove that I could do it. It wasn't something that, like, I went into the food industry. I had no idea about the food industry. I just saw the opportunity and the gap. And I said, I can fill that gap. And in true entrepreneurial fashion, sometimes it's like, I have an idea. Let's try to pursue it. What I didn't realize is that I was going into an industry and a company and all these things, that my motivations for starting my business weren't true to what I love to do, what my purpose was, or what my values were. I just saw it as a means to an end. In 2012, one of the triggers that happened was I was sued, a baseless class action lawsuit, where I was the 5th company targeted by this woman, an attorney. And that's when I realized, like, why would somebody sue me? Like, I did nothing wrong, like nothing's off. And, and it was a business for her. I was a 5th company, and she told me to my face that she had already bankrupted 2 companies. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do this right. And we went through it, and she was proven wrong, but it struck a chord in me, because I took it personally. I'm like, I've done everything right. I was not making any money at that point, because I was like, my margins and everything, it was hard for me to go through that point. And I'm like, why did I put so much energy and effort into something that hasn't generated what I wanted to generate? And that's when I started to look to myself in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong? Why have I been in this track? And I was seeing my friends on the side in their corporate ladders and different places, earning so much more than me. And a lot of times people think that entrepreneurship leads you to that wealth, but you're really quitting a 40-hour work week to get into a 100-hour work week, right? And so it was that process of saying, hey, if I'm going to put this energy into something, might as well be something that I like to do and that I'm aligned with. So a lot of times I think we confuse passion with purpose. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. And I think, once I understood that, yeah, I love people, I love to empower people, and then I started doing that for my employees through different systems and methods that I learned. it was a way to combine both things, the profit and the people, right? Because after 2 years, we were the most profitable ever, and everybody was earning the most money ever. Even my employees, we had bonuses, we had structures, we had profit sharing, and it was like we were all in it together. And that made it not only good for the company, but also good for the environment, for all of us to, as a community, I guess, all of us to really hone in on the benefits and be aligned in what we were doing together, right? And eventually to the point where I started doing other things on the side, and my team was like, "You're letting us here. We want to continue this. We want to do this." And they eventually bought me out, so that I could go do my things, and they could continue down the path they wanted. But I feel that it's true. There was a trigger around it where I think I had to reflect and understand, what is all this effort for? Right? Because I think I was in a rat race. I was just trying to prove a point that I could make it as an entrepreneur.
That is a typical story of so many entrepreneurs, right? They run as fast as they can. And often that time to reflect, they don't take it. They don't have that time because they're switching hats so frequently, taking on all the different jobs that need to be done. Talk a little bit about your profit recipe. What is it? What do you teach people?
Yeah, so it's my journey. I kind of go through the journey. The profit recipe is the name of the book, but it's also the name of the firm. So it's what it talks about. It's a flywheel effect, right? So it's Jim Collins' traditional good to great flywheel concept that, the first time you're trying to pull that flywheel and you're trying to make it go through, and it's hard, it's tough, it's steel, so it's hard to get moving. But once it starts moving, then it gets easier and easier, and it rolls easier and easier and easier. So the concept is that there's 5 stages of entrepreneurship in the flywheel effect. And the first stage is a startup mode, right? It's a startup by design, where I'm trying to find the market fit. I'm trying to make sure that people want what I'm selling and my product is sound, and I'm creating value and generating value, and people are willing to pay for that value, right? So it's creating that, market fit approach and startup. Then I go through leadership by design. Leadership by design is stage 2, where I need to understand as an entrepreneur that I can't do it all by myself. I have certain things that I'm good at, and I have certain things that I'm not good at. I have passions and ideal life I want to live, and there's things I don't want to do. So I think one of the biggest traps a lot of entrepreneurs get into is, because I start a business, I have to do everything in it. And that's so far from the truth, because you wouldn't hire yourself for some of the positions if you were going to a corporate job, or you could do, because you're terrible at it, right? I'm terrible in finance. I'm one of the worst cash managers you'll ever meet. But I was in charge of my finances in the business for 15 years. It was the worst thing I could do. I would never hire myself as a finance person. But as an entrepreneur, I would assume that I had to do it, because everybody tells you need to be on top of your numbers. You need to be on top of your numbers. So that confusion, it's like, no, I'm not good in my numbers. I need somebody else to do that for me. And really understanding and being vulnerable enough to understand what I'm good at and what I'm not, and then start finding people. And that's phase 3, which is building a team by design. It's finding people who can really complement you and grow the company with you, but that you don't have to be everything to everyone, right? And then the team by design is both external and internal, where we're talking about who do I need around me, coaches, mentors, peers that inspire me to get to a different level, and internally, people who I can delegate to and can take on responsibility and ownership. So that's part of the team by design. That's phase 3. Then we go to phase 4, which is business by design. And business by design is how do we create a leverageable process, systems, and things that we can scale, right? So once we have the market fit on startup, I learn what I can do well on leadership. Then I start hiring my team. Then we all need to be functioning in a very easy way by having an operating system, by understanding what the metrics are, understanding what the process and systems are. And then ultimately, which is a final and first step really, is life by design, which is the conundrum of, do I get to life by design after I go through all the grunt, or should I start with life by design before I start my business? And that's why it's a flywheel. It's always a circle, because once you get to life by design, then you typically have the itch of, okay, what's the next business and how can I align it easier and more to my life? based on the networks I have, the knowledge I know, and different things. And that's why the cycle becomes easier and easier, and the flywheel effect takes on, because now that I understand how to do all these things, then the second business, the third business will be much easier. In my case, it took me, I think it was like 7 years to get to $1 million in my first business. Then the second business, it took me like 3 years, but then three and four, within the first 6 months, I was over $1 million, because you already kind of know what you're doing. You know the people you need. You kind of understand how to plug it through. So I call it the flywheel effect, because the more times you go around the cycle, the easier it is. One of the biggest mistakes I had, I guess, was I was so stuck in the first go around that it took me 16 years to get out of it and really understand that, oh, I could do other things that are more aligned with my life and the life I want. So that's why I call it the profit recipe, and how to unlock the entrepreneurial flywheel to live a life by design.
So you also have a group of businesses that you bring together, and you have other coaches like you that work with them, right? And so speak a little bit about that, because that's a unique model. So how did you organize it, and how are the businesses structured?
Yeah. So I started implementing EOS, which is based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Started in my business in 2012, but I started implementing for other companies.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment? Because many people may not know what Gino Wickman does and his EOS system. There's also Vern Harnish and his scaling up process. They're both very similar, although the actual implementation effect is a little bit different. And what these two gentlemen have done is put together processes to really help entrepreneurs push forward. Their books are fabulous. So if people are interested in growing their business, it's well worth looking at. So 100%. On that note, please continue.
Yes. So Vern Harnish on Scaling Up, the book Scaling Up, and Gino Wickman with the book Traction. Both very similar and based on Jim Collins' Good to Great as well. So all these concepts, traditional business concepts. I talk a lot about that part in the Business by Design. So once you get to that point, so I started implementing these tools in my business in 2012. And then I said, you know what? I love this. I love what it did for my business. So I can start doing this for other businesses as well. And that's what I started doing in 2016. And I started doing it for other businesses, started seeing the effect it had on them and how much I love doing this work and seeing this impact in other companies. So after about 4 years, I've gone through a lot of companies, but then I'm like, you know what? I need a community. I'm still in this phase of building. It's my entrepreneurial itch. And I said, why don't I put together a group of people who are complementary to each other? We have some operational people, some people who are people experts on team building and management. We have some people that are finance experts. We have some people that are franchise experts. So process experts. So I'm like, how can we, building a team by design, right? How can we plug in different people in the Miami area and Florida area where we can help and build a community of companies going through the same process? So we're all implementers. We all help companies implement these systems, but at the same time, we also offer complementary services where we can help a community of companies. If second in commands, they have roundtables where they can get together and talk about how hard it is to be, second in command to these crazy entrepreneurs. Or we have groups of, sales skilling. And today we have a marketing scaling up program where they're asking about marketing and how to do it. So we're creating a community of different companies that are going through the same processes, implementing the same systems, but at the same time, they can collaborate and help each other become and implement faster.
Got it. So especially right now, that's a fabulous system. Right now, people are being challenged by the economy and the tightening of money, basically. Yep. So what are you finding are the biggest challenges your businesses have as you work with them?
Yeah, right now we have around 127 companies that we're implementing with actively. These systems are made for wartime. So I think a lot while we were going through COVID, it's a weekly pivoting, talking, communication. It improves all these things. So a lot of people are making decisions faster, and I think that's been a benefit to them because they've been able to react to the market, both the job market at the beginning when there were nobody and nobody, everybody was going through this job market crisis. And now with the economy, not understanding what's going to happen or the uncertainty, I think they're able to plan better and to pivot faster because they have such great communication at all levels within the company. So what we're seeing the what I'm seeing as a general trend is the job market is starting to loosen up. So there's more and more people looking for jobs. But at this point, I'm not seeing yet that standstill in economy. I still see a lot of investment and growth in a lot of them. We had a lot hit the Inc. 5000 list this last week that just happened.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's always rewarding when they acknowledge you as well.
So as you work with the companies, if you could wave a magic wand, Cesar, and make something really happen for business growth, entrepreneur growth, what would that be? What do you see? Where's the hole that you see?
Oh, when you said I see a hole, I don't see the hole. I see the trend. And I think you mentioned it before. I have 4 companies that I work with that are being certified B Corp, which B Corp now stands for they do well in their community, for their employees, for their so it's a company with conscious mindset and how to become more conscious about all stakeholders, not only the financial stakeholders, but customers, employees, and in community. So that's one of the things I'm seeing a lot of is the embracing of purposeful meaning around the work they do, purposeful meaning around the culture they carry. I just came back from an Argentinian company called Domaine Busquet, and they have organic wine. And it was so empowering. I went down to Argentina to visit their vineyards, and we had a trip with a team and the whole team and their whole leadership team, and how long they've been there, the passion they have for the organic revolution they're starting in the wine industry, how much they everybody gets offered a job all the time because there's a huge labor shortage in Argentina as well. And everybody's like, no, this is where I want to be. It's more about what you were mentioning before. It's a place for us to be part of something bigger. So I think that's also the UN and the SDGs, what do they call them? I forgot the name right now. Significance. They call it the 17 SDGs, which is how
the UN 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what they stand for, but it's how do we
sustainable
development. Yeah, and I really believe that that's the bridge that many companies are starting to have, and most employees are gravitating towards as well, is trying to be not just part of a job, but being part of a movement.
Got it. So for you, Cesar, what will be your legacy?
Wow, my legacy. I don't know. That's a big question. I feel if I'm able, so I truly believe entrepreneurship changes the world. I don't believe it's government. I don't believe it's big companies. I believe that entrepreneurs have the ability to really change their communities from inside at every point. But that only happens if the entrepreneurs are doing what they're meant to do, what they love to do, and what they're great at. If we get stuck on the trap and the rat race of trying to be everything to everyone, we're not able to really use our superpowers to really make that change in the world and in the impact that we want. So if I want to leave a legacy, is that I'm helping entrepreneurs really find that purpose, find those strengths, and really hone in on their true skills.
Hone in on their true skills. That's great. Isn't that what everybody wants, really? So, Cesar, what have we left out? Our time is almost up. What have we missed or not covered that you would like to be sure that the audience knows?
I don't know. I'm thinking everything's been covered. Is there something? I don't know. I think everything's been covered.
What from your childhood? I'll ask you another question. What from your childhood in Venezuela has influenced you the most in your journey today?
So about my childhood, I think a lot of my father was an entrepreneur. My mom was a true academic and corporate person. So I had the upbringing of having these two type A people that were really go-getters. And I think seeing their trajectory and what they did, they instilled in me a lot of perseverance. They instilled in me a lot of work ethic. But also, one of the things I loved about my family is that they had a true vision of globalization coming. So they knew that Venezuela was just a pocket in a little crystal ball. And back in that time, it was at the pinnacle of the economy and capitalism. So they wanted us to experience the world, live in America for 6 months, and then go. And my mom worked in Pan Am, so Pan American. So we traveled for free. So they wanted us to experience the world in different ways that we could see that we were not just in this little bubble. And I think that was one of the biggest things of growing up, and what my parents instilled in us was the work ethic, but also the global view that, you're not stuck in just where you are. There's more possibilities. The world is flat.
The world is flat. There's a lot of possibilities. You just got to look for it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Cesar. It's been wonderful to have you on Building My Legacy podcast today. And for those of you who are listening to our podcast, thank you for being with us. And be sure to visit our websites at www.buildtomorrow.com with the number 2. And our newest website, which is www.startwithcollaboration.com. And we will have information about Cesar in the show notes. So you're welcome to contact him and get further information from him. So thank you again, Cesar.
Thank you, Lois. It was a real pleasure.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonsteg. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonsteg, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.